They operated in the shadows, following top-secret orders to preserve the might of their rulers. The mysteries of antiquity's secret agents stretch back thousands of years. But now the case files on history's real James Bonds are being reopened. The ninja assassins that blew their enemies away. The secret agent who wore the world's first life jacket to save Rome from burning. The Italian genius who wrote secret messages inside eggs. And the elite spy communication systems that supported history's greatest empires. The surprising results will provide a profound insight into the world of the ancient secret agent, one that's still true of the men and women who serve in the intelligence community today. We're blowing the whistle on the hidden world of the ancient secret agent. The secret agent operates alone, against the odds, deep behind enemy lines. Sometimes assassin, sometimes saboteur, always intelligence gatherer. They're a vital part of the military machine today, and the same was true in the ancient world. The most dangerous secret agents were trained to kill, silently, almost invisibly. In the 15th century, history's most mysterious assassins were the ninja, who struck fear in the nation of Japan. The dark arts of the ninja are still shrouded in secrecy, even now.
Ninja history is surrounded in secrecy and mystery because the history of the samurai and Japanese history was written by the samurai.
Mark Moore is a modern-day ninja practitioner. He's been studying ninjutsu for over 25 years and has mastered all the skills of a ninja. The ninja's most basic combat technique was unarmed jiu-jitsu, the art of softness. It's a martial art that involves holds and throws, pinning an enemy to the ground. A ninja was also taught how to break out of enemy holds, and nothing was off limits. Jiu-jitsu included training in gouging, striking, kicking, and even biting an attacker. The ninja also used simple but deadly blades. One of the most common was the shuriken.
Many of them were just simple bits of metal bashed out into any sort of shapes that could be thrown.
The result was a cheap but deadly blade.
There's various ways of using a shuriken. Throwing it at a target, or you can use it at close quarters to rip and to tear or to lever things apart.
But there's a surprising and little-known aspect to ninja weaponry. They adapted their shuriken blades to create bombs. The evidence for this comes from an old Japanese manuscript known as the Bansen Shugai.
A lot of the information comes from Bansen Shugai.
The Bansen Shugai is a Japanese text from 1676. It's one of the first known written records of ninja activities and practices.
It details the types of implements that were used, techniques, and ninja strategies.
The book contains a set of blueprints that reveal the secrets of how to turn a shuriken into a bomb. Richard Windley has been studying this text and has recreated the ancient ninja attack device.
What we did with these devices was to make them into what we would now call a stun grenade.
A shuriken bomb is effectively a smoke bomb, a hand-thrown device with black powder and a fuse.
This would hurtle into a room maybe, or a whole volley of these things hurtle into a room, and then suddenly they'd explode.
The device is simple yet devastatingly effective. It involves strapping two equally weighted hemispheres full of black powder onto the shuriken. This enables the shuriken to be thrown during an attack without upsetting the balance and aerodynamics of the blades. The throwing technique would be exactly the same as for a normal shuriken, but the results totally different.
There'd be quite a loud bang, which can sort of obviously affect the ears. The flash could disorient people. It could also give them temporary flash blindness for a few seconds, which may be enough for the assailants to get in and do whatever damage they were trying to do.
With the strategic use of small amounts of black powder, the ninja could quite literally seem to appear in a puff of smoke. But the mysterious Bansenshugai blueprints hold even more surprises for scholars of the ninja. For the development of ninja explosives did not stop at the shuriken bomb. The ninja also used gunpowder to cause surprise and confusion.
So we know from the manuals that some of these bamboo devices were used singly, like the grenades, but they also speak of multiple ones. So these might have been full-size ones, or they might actually have been smaller ones, which were used more, not to cause damage, but to cause disruption. And this is a sort of multi-charge device, and these would have been fused together so they wouldn't all go off simultaneously. So it'd be a bit like a sort of crackerjack. So throw a few of these into a room, and it would be a surprise tactic. There could be a small group of people, perhaps 4 or 5 people, lobbing a whole load of these, and it would be like being attacked by maybe 20 or 30 or 50.
Other ninja bombs had serious potential as anti-personnel weapons, comparable to modern hand grenades.
Now, when you cut bamboo, it's got what is called these nodes, and they're actually like little sealed compartments. We can just see that one's sealed there. And if you just cut them either side of the node, we get a completely sealed tube, which is quite effective. I've drilled a hole in these to fill them with, to put the gunpowder in, then a little plug which would be glued in with some sort of resin adhesive, and then we put the fuse through the little hole in the top. Light the fuse, lob this thing, and you've got quite an effective grenade.
We're trying to simulate one of these grenades going off just as it's passing someone's body. This would be coming through the air at a fair speed. And we've placed this dummy here so that we can get some idea of how much damage this thing would do to the human body. That was a real surprise. I never expected these things to go off like that. It was a huge bang. We've got bits of bamboo actually impaled into the dummy. We can see areas of charring here, all from a simple little device with a few ounces of gunpowder.
But perhaps the most surprising use of explosives by the ninja, who were renowned for their stealth and silence, involved an assassination attempt that literally blew the earth apart. The target of the attack was the Lord Isiyagu, who'd made a great many enemies through underhand political dealings. Selecting a road they knew he would be traveling, the ninja planted a deadly trap.
They dug beneath the road and planted bombs, effectively, and to ambush his party and to try and assassinate him.
Of the devices described in the Bansenshugai, only one could have contained enough gunpowder to create large-scale destruction. The book describes an uzumebi, a wooden box filled with explosives.
The problem is if they're just nailed together, which they probably would have been, when the gunpowder explodes, these are going to blow apart quite easily, and to some extent this will lessen the impact of the explosives.
The explosive power of gunpowder increases the more it's constrained.
One of the simplest methods of constraining them a bit more would be to bind them with rope.
But could these incredibly simple devices really explode with enough force to collapse the foundations of a road?
What we really need to do is explode a few of these things and just get a rough idea of whether they do the kind of damage that is commensurate with the damage that was done in the tail.
Using materials similar to that of the soft earthen roads of ancient Japan, we're going to test how powerful an uzumebi bomb could be. The fuse would have been of black powder, lit from a hiding place some distance away.
Well, I think that was pretty significant. That was a fairly small device, about a pound and a quarter of gunpowder. It's completely demolished this pile of earth here. We imagine those 3 or 4 times that size, sapped under a road. That's the end of the road, and whatever happens to be walking on the road. And it's also a really surprisingly loud crash.
The destruction caused by the bombs in our tests shows that such devices are able to cause a serious explosion and substantial displacement of the Earth, going as deep as 20 feet.
It was a great explosion. It worked technically fantastically. A big hole in the road, much death and destruction.
The great warlord Isiyagu was killed in the attack. As always, the ninja would have struck unannounced and undetected. Their covert approach, coupled with their knowledge of explosives, was a terrifying and deadly combination, a true demonstration of the skill and resourcefulness of ancient Japan's secret agents. But nearly 2,000 years before the ninja, a Roman secret agent went undercover to save the city of Rome. How did he swim across a river torrent wearing a metal suit of armor and yet still float? In 390 BC, Rome was captured by an army of marauding Gauls.
When the Gauls took over Rome, they didn't just take over the city, they destroyed it. Besieged on the Capitoline Hill, senators had to watch as Rome's history burnt to the ground.
The survival of the city rested in the hands of one man, a secret agent who swam 130 feet across the river Tiber, dressed in a suit of armor. How did he do it? And why didn't he sink? It's a mystery 24 centuries old.
Rome in 390 BC was a tenuous place to be, where power shifted from day to day.
The Gauls had entered the city and surrounded Rome's senators on Capitoline Hill. Rome's only hope was an army stationed 17 miles away, commanded by the exiled general Camillus. Roman tradition and law forbade generals from leading their armies into the city. Even in this time of crisis, Camillus needed the permission of the Senate to assume temporary dictatorship and march on Rome.
Camillus had to get a message through to the senators. He needed to get their approval for him to be made dictator and general so that he could lead the forces to victory and regain Rome. How did he do this? He chose one man, the first kind of hero of the ancient Roman story, to take that message for him.
Ancient documents written by Roman historian Plutarch record that agent's name as Pontius Cominius. Very little is known about this hero of Roman history, except that he was tasked with getting the message to the senators on the Capitol. But Pontius had a problem.
How did he cross the fast-flowing river Tiber while still wearing some kind of protective armor so that he could fight his way through to the Senate if necessary?
The story goes that the ancient secret agent invented the world's first floating suit of armor.
And he half swims, half floats across the river, and then climbs up at night and manages to make contact with some of the key Roman leaders. And he says to them, listen, there's this man that you exiled called Camillus. He's exactly the man that we need to come back and defend us at this time of great crisis.
But how do you make armor float? It's believed that Pontius crafted a suit of armor made of metal and cork. At the Royal Lifeboat College in Poole, we applied the latest scientific techniques to test the story of Pontius Cominius and the cork suit that saved Rome.
What we're doing today is trying to experiment and trying to demonstrate how a suit of corks would work.
Dan Shadrake is an expert in Roman equipment and espionage activities. He's investigating how to make a cork buoyancy aid like the one Pontius used to swim across the river Tiber.
You would take strips of this bark, cork bark, and basically, as you can see here, cut them down, cut off strips of cork, and just basically push them into the cells of the under armor garment.
Dan's design reveals that the Romans may have invented the world's first life jacket.
When I look at the materials, when I look at the principles involved, i.e. you're essentially making a life preserver around the upper body, as it were, it does look incredibly like a modern life jacket. It's fairly surprising that somebody should come up with the concept of a life jacket at least 1900 years before we actually knew that life jackets existed.
There's only one way to find out whether Pontius's life jacket actually works.
If I go straight to the bottom, then obviously I'm wrong.
The tank is calibrated to simulate rough water conditions, similar to those Pontius Cominius would have faced when crossing the river Tiber that night. Surprisingly, Dan floats comfortably.
I'm still retaining my buoyancy. So far I'm feeling fairly relaxed. I don't know how I'd feel wearing bronze armour on top of this, but as I say, it's keeping me afloat.
The ancient Roman cork suit passes the test with distinction, but it's said that Pontius used the cork suit to support him whilst wearing armour on his hazardous swim. will the cork layer support an extra 25 pounds of weight?
It is incredibly heavy. These tiny bronze scales are sewn on